One of the exercise routines I've incorporated into my world over the years is foundation training. Dr. Goodman developed these good co-activating kind of principles in how to do, different. It's kind of a yoga flavor, but I think his father was a yoga instructor and he's an exercise physiologist / chiropractor. But that's really the idea. This human body is so amazingly complex that, I've 37 trillion human cells. And, some of the research I've read says maybe 390 trillion viral cells is part of our body and 39 trillion bacterial cells make up the human body, which is about 456 trillion cells. It's just amazingly complex. I think we have to change that mindset of the body is so complex. We can't just keep doing simple things. We have to kind of look at it more complexly, but we don't necessarily have to spend all of our time trying to think about it. We just have to be, I think, a little bit more aware that, hey, maybe some of these quick things are not the way to go. So in your practice and in your office, how does that work? Because you've got a lot of those tools already in the toolkit. I mean, what does it look like in your office when somebody comes in? Do you have enough doctors within your office, or are you collaborating with doctors in your area, or how does it look?
The one thing I'll say that's quite different about our practice from every other practice, and a lot of patients call and they say, I'd like to see Dr. So-and-so. You don't have a choice in that here. Meaning because everyone works together as a team. Every morning, it's a team effort. You don't have access to one, you have access to all of them. Every single case that comes in here is a team discussion around a table. Like I said, instead of actually putting the patient sitting there on the table physically, it's their chart. It's everything about them. It's their, assessment. It's everything you heard as different practitioners when you spoke to them. It's all of that. So you have access to everyone. My father's only in office maybe once a week or twice a week to meet with patients. He's working every day on patient cases though. He's still full time and everyone's like, oh, he's slowed down. I'm like, I think he's sped up, he has 50 cases to review, over this week. So it's always about, I think, looking at it not as this doctor will give you his opinion or this doctor will formulate his protocol. And if you went to another doctor in the same center, you may get a totally different protocol. This is the team effort. This is our innovative medicine protocol, not Dr. Szulc, not Dr. Ivanitsky, not anyone else's here. And then you have access to everyone there. You're going to meet with the psychologist. You're going to meet with the doctor some. You're going to meet with the clinical director who specializes more in the energy medicine side. And they'll all apply their specialty to you, understanding that everyone else, what else you did. Oh, you already had that nutritional IV there. This is going to work very well to help optimize that. And I could see in your results that you needed this works very well. So I think that's a big part of how we are able to do this efficiently. And I think systematically, always looking at it from different perspectives and knowing that we're giving you multiple viewpoints. We're giving you multiple angles. We're looking at this comprehensively, not just in your biochemistry but also psychologically. So it's all these different things that come together to give us basically what we say is like a true interaction conversation with your intelligence, not just with you. You may not know that relationship that broke down when you were little is still impacting you and actually having an effect on your biochemistry and causing this dysfunction. But your body knows that. If we could tap into it and have that conversation with it and then meet as a group of practitioners and doctors with so much experience and so many different trainings and everything that go into it. It's not just 40 plus years of my father there. It's over 100 now, a few hundred years of experience looking at your case.
Looking at that.
And while I'll say it's probably a little slower, right? If every doctor here were just given their office to speak with a patient at the same time, it would probably bring in more, but I don't know if the results would all be the same. And the more minds you have around it that are truly trained in this, and always we're looking at dynamically training them. We do training on regular basis here. We'll stop seeing patients early just so we could do that, bring other people from around the world into the clinic to say, train more. So we have a bigger awareness field so that when the next case comes up, maybe someone picks up on that and says, okay, I'm seeing this is a good one too. And we all come together to say, okay. So this team effort, and again, you see it in sports. It's like, yeah, you can have one rock star on it, but if you don't have the team effort, you're not going to win that way. So I do think that medicine needs to work in that way. In many ways, it kind of is, where you're seeing these kind of larger centers that are cooperative a little bit. But I still think it's, oh, you'll be meeting with Dr. So-and-so and they'll give you their protocol. And then, just the nurses kind of follow that protocol without much input. Here, the nurses have a ton of input on that. So everyone does, and everyone's kind of dynamically looking at as well. How are you adjusting in the first week or so? And then the input comes from multiple angles as they are treating the patient, which also helps to understand the progress, what can be changed during it, because everything's dynamic. As you start to peel the layers of the onion back, other things show up.
Very good. In that, it sounds like you're treating cases that are many times complicated, difficult cases. Are you also treating on a wellness type of approach?
It is both. We have people that come here for the wellness perspective, preventive, just regenerative. We have an anti-aging division here where we utilize a more inside-out approach and no chemicals and kind of surgical procedures. However, I have to say, this is America. I think most people wait till they have a problem before they address it, right? If it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of mentality.
Unless it is the athlete,
Oh, yeah. The athletes are wonderful because they're just used to that. They're used to pushing themselves and they're used to a coach, right? We love the athletes because they are so compliant. You tell them this is your diet for the next 4 weeks. They do not break that diet. Someone else, they'll admit, I had some wine here, some of this, Exactly. But yeah, it's a lot of complex cases, especially, this is out of pocket. This isn't covered by insurance. So a lot of times what you're going to see is someone with a symptom that years develops into chronic, would never show up here. But as a last chance, without that insurance there, they come here. And unfortunately, by then, it's a pretty complex condition. It's had years and years to kind of manifest. And in many ways, the different approaches, whether it's years of antibiotics, also makes it a little bit more difficult and longer to then get back. You have to see it as the longer you have something, the longer it's going to take to resolve. If you've been suffering with something for a very long time, you can't expect it in 2 weeks to be all gone. Meanwhile, if you caught it early, and maybe a few weeks would be good. But the complexity of cases also, I think in general, are just, in this day and age at their highest, meaning they're most complex. It's never one or two things that are causing this. It's a whole handful of things here, from the stress to the EMF, to pathogens, to nutritional deficiencies, to energetic meridians, all of these things. And it's like, well, you got to go one at a time. It's a little bit of a slower process, but we'll address each of those.
So you have your practice in New York. Is this model something that is starting to show up in the United States anywhere else, or across the globe anywhere else? Is that part of the vision?
That is definitely part of the vision where we're going. I'd love to see this elsewhere. And again, this isn't to say there are many wonderful practices out there that are similar in this respect. I mean, we are close. We refer to the Paracelsus Clinic and Dr. Rao's clinic out in Switzerland, which is a very European biological, does a lot of things. And of course, there are different practitioners across the United States that offer different but similar service, I would say. But we would love to see this become something that is more accessible, and something that we do have throughout. We've been talking, that's why we built out a management services organization, so that we can expand this to other locations and use the blueprint we have here to open, whether it be California, whether it be Florida, elsewhere, that we know it would be easier to get to, of course. It's always difficult when you're traveling and you're sick to go someplace across the globe, even, or across the country, and get treatment. And of course, we have to approach it a little differently because we don't have access where you could just drive here and stay for weeks at a time. So the vision would be, of course, to expand this, but even more so, the vision would just be to expand the awareness among people. Too many people I speak with say, I'm completely out of options. And I ask, what have you tried? What have you done before? I went to the conventional route. I saw, an acupuncturist, and I'm out of options. And I go, my God, you've got so many options. We have over 100 therapies here. You tried maybe 3 of them so far, right? Right. But if you don't know that there are 100 options, if you don't know about this approach, of course, you're limited. You're limited to what you know. And unfortunately, most doctors say, hey, we're out of choices. We tried surgery. We gave you the pills. We did this experimental one. It didn't work. Sorry. Good luck.
Right.
When we know there are doctors such as yourself and others all around that are doing wonderful jobs and increasing those therapeutic options to provide people with the solutions that may be the ones they require to get their health back.
Gotcha. So I wanted to touch on a couple more things here. One is a supplement that was developed by you and your practice, Nadovim.
Yeah.
And I've actually tried that myself and have found it to be a positive supplement. Share a little bit about the history on that. And I know it's just one of many products and opportunities, but it looks like it's a very good one. There's one molecule taking the anti-aging world by storm. It's NAD. NAD is required for energy production, detoxification, and brain function. But as we age, our levels plummet to about half of what they once were. Fortunately, there's Nadovim. Nadovim keeps you sharp for the long term as it replenishes and pre-plenishes your brain with 200 milligrams of pure NAD+. To get 10% off this clinical grade supplement, use the code FIX at checkout when you visit nadovim.com. That's NADOVIM.com.
Yeah, no, that was our flagship one. That was everything that for 10 years plus, we were saying, okay, we have a medical clinic that does great things and clinically applies them. Of course, you have to come here. Most of it is an IV format, but what is it? What's the lowest hanging fruit here that we can make them more available? We understand that if someone comes to us, the chances of them actually showing up, paying out of pocket, coming across the world are somewhat slim. So then it's basically, what are you offering them? You're offering them a chance to come into your clinic, which is a very, laborious type of thing. It's a big decision. It's something that many people would probably not want to take a first step into this foray to do. So how can we make something available here that would have the most impact on the most people and be available for them to purchase themselves anywhere in the world? And so we looked for years and years of what that could be. And then, we came across NAD many years ago, and nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, which is an incredibly important cofactor coenzyme for mitochondrial health. Energy of each cell relies on that, transitioning from food into energy and really making sure each cell is properly functioning. And when we applied that in IV format years ago, we saw great results. And we saw great results normally with dysfunctions of the brain. So things like brain fog after Lyme disease, after any type of, infection, you may have that brain fog. You have all types of neurological conditions, Parkinsonism, dementia, that were improving when you provided NAD in an IV format. Now, in an IV format, of course, that's uncomfortable. It's expensive. It sometimes takes hours to get, because you have to go on a slow drip with NAD usually. But we did say, all right, what can we do to then take what's going on in this IV we're seeing great results with and apply it in an oral format? And that was a challenge. A lot of the research shows it's not bioavailable. It gets, hydrolyzed in the stomach acid, and it doesn't pass through the gut barrier. And we had to, figure it out with a nutraceutical company. How can we combine this with other known nootropics? Because we wanted to impact the brain, which we saw a crisis going on. Too many people were losing focus and thinking that's just part of the aging process, when no, that's the brain sort of deteriorating or losing energy at a vast rate. And then we learned how important NAD is in all brain functions, and then learned how it gets depleted with things like alcohol, drugs, stress, oxidative stress, things that are abundant in everyday's life.
Right.
And so we took 2 years to develop this and really try it out. And then we took another year and a half before introducing it to the public in doctors' offices. And we saw great results with it as well. And we saw those tremors go down in Parkinson's cases, and people starting to regain their memory, and focus was there, and clarity and mental acuity. So we said, all right, this is, what we wanted. We wanted this experiential proof in some of the toughest cases out there that doctors are giving to us, and we saw at our own clinic. And so we introduced that to the public, and, anyone can have that now. It's a comprehensive type of nootropic, you could say, but I really think it's just overall brain health in general. Being nootropics, most people consider for those optimized people that are already out there and just need to really focus. But we said, no, this is great for anybody dealing with any type. They might not even be looking to, truly be an optimized version, even though that's what they're getting to. But we saw people that were aging and were forgetting things suddenly remember those things again. So they're getting to the baseline, at least where they should be with this. And it is one of those that isn't a stimulant per se. You're actually replenishing NAD levels in the body, which then can, have the mitochondrial functioning properly and getting that energy required for each cell. And your brain takes up 20% of the energy on a daily basis.
Right.
So yeah, it was a cool, interesting foray into kind of nutraceutical development, because at first it's like, we can't do this. No company would take it on. And then the research was a little bit against this, but recent research actually out of Japan and Spain showed differently. And so, at the end of the day, I think research and clinical studies are important. Don't get me wrong, but I still think that experience and actual clinical results are kind of should be the guiding principle of this. Because if someone's getting better, I think that's, and repeatedly in the doctor's office, especially, that's probably one of the best indicators for us. You could throw out all the data you want. If we're applying that and not seeing results, what does that truly matter? And so, yeah, we were really happy about that. And we're seeing great results. And we got biohackers involved and athletes also. But it all started, again, in our medical center. And it was really a long-term feat of how do we get something out to more people and help.
That's very cool. A lot of times people don't even know that they're not as sharp. They don't even know the range of motion. I used to be able to turn my head, 80 degrees, and I'm only turning at 40, but I didn't even know it.
Right.
It just kind of sneaks up on you. The studies aren't there a lot of times because it's not the big pharma that wants to fund these types of studies.
The money isn't there.
Money is just not there. And so, you kind of have an emphasis on healing over disease management. We've kind of touched on that a little bit. And this is one of those, nutraceuticals, supplements that, kind of address that kind of a concept. But I was wondering if you might be able to share some of that healing versus disease management. I don't know if you could share a unique patient case or two utilizing maybe Chinese medicine or European medicine. You got a couple patient cases in mind that you could maybe kind of talk about the healing versus disease management?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's definitely a lot of patients that come to mind because it's basically everyone that walks in this door, right?
Nice.
Is on multiple, drugs and multiple pharmaceuticals that are managing their disease that they require for the rest of their life. And that is, of course, the disease management. That is a treating type of thing. We are treating your disease. And it is not really there. It's there, but it's not coming out, right? We're minimizing it. We're keeping everything baseline as long as you keep taking this pill. But in reality, it's there. You're receiving a treatment every single day that's having some sort of effect, residual effect and side effect over the long term. You're probably going to need more over the long term. You'll probably need something else to deal with the side effects of what you're taking here. And that's been the approach of most of medicine is to just treat something that way and keep you on a lifelong progress and never truly address the root cause. But once you go into this idea of we want to heal you, and it's really not even we want to heal you, we want to allow your body to do what it does, which is self-healing. It's, again, always doing this itself. It has miraculous, systems, whether it's the immune system or other systems that are always healing you and keeping you in homeostasis. And so once you are able to do that, once you're able to start to even tweak things in the body to where it's normally functioning, usually you'll taper off. So we had a hypertensive patient in here, 20 years on hypertensive drugs. And it came up that, there were three main factors: stress, oxidative stress going on. Number two was high toxicity levels. So they had high heavy metals, mercury especially. And number three, they had multiple pathogens. EBV, GR, these are things you see. Now, you can mix and match these because every patient has a little bit different, but it is unfortunate that so many people walk around with pathogens that are sapping them of energy, that are impacting their immune system, impacting neurological, impacting GI, and that you just live with it. And you kind of, as a society sometimes lives with criminals in the system. Sometimes It gets a little rampant, right? And things get bad. And you have to kind of up the police levels or do something about it. And the police are basically our immune system. Or sometimes it's very low and things go very well and you feel safe to leave your doors open, walk around, and it's a much lighter feeling. The same thing goes on in the body. And as long as you're just medicating that and not addressing it, it's going to continue slowly getting worse, actually, right? So you're never truly addressing it, and those things get. So by addressing those three simply, doing some antimicrobial type therapies, improving the function of the organs of detoxification, right? And those could be simple things. And again, all personalized from European biological medicines that help stimulate, so oral, or you could do IVs as well. And then you do some chelation after that once those organs of elimination are ready to push out. So you chelate those mercury, it gets pushed out, gets excreted. And then you address, the final factor of stress. You could do different types of neuroemotional techniques. You could do stress reduction and breathing even. You could do biofeedback therapy, all these things that start to address that. But mainly, it's on the patient to do those things as well. If they're in a stressful environment at work, it's got to change somewhat. And once you address those, you start to see, and you'll be monitoring that the need for pharmaceutical intervention or treatment is not required and tapers off. And the body adjusts and it gets into the self-healing status. It's almost like a supply and demand curve, right? As treatment is not necessary, self-healing kind of goes up, and that's where you want to be. You want to be in a place where healing is there. You're always self-healing. Your body is optimized and functioning properly to take on anything really that comes its way. Every once in a while, it will go out of homeostasis, right? And that you might need some small treatments or some small healing solutions to push it back in the right direction.
Right.
But that's really the different. And I think there's, wonderful people like David Hawkins used to write a lot about this, about power versus force, about the difference of treating versus healing. In one, it's more about this self-elicited response that gets you into a higher state. The other, it's more like the sweeping under the rug that keeps you there. It's just managing that. It's giving you the crutches and the Band-Aids, but you're still having these wounds and injuries in a sense.
Gotcha. So kind of going to work towards wrapping up here a little bit.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on COVID. Is your office treating COVID? What are some of the things that you're seeing that may work well from a natural perspective? I've seen a few things out there that I've encouraged my patients to consider. What's happening with COVID in your office?
Yeah, so we're not treating COVID patients per se. We are treating patients, not even treating, I should say. We're preparing patients that are, asking for it to boost their immune response, to be prepared for it, to have those, vitamin C, vitamin D, supplementation or IVs, zinc, magnesium, giving them melatonin, everything, and basically trying to reduce. If you do get coronavirus by any chance, then your risk of having any type of real serious adverse symptoms to it would be greatly reduced. And we've seen this across the board in the data. All the places that you saw that were giving the vitamin C, vitamin D, they showed a reduction in this. And I would even say that I spoke with Dr. Weber from Germany, who has a Weber laser, and he went to Iran, was telling me, because he couldn't do this in Germany at the time because the hospitals wouldn't allow him, but in Iran, he had connections there, and he was going in and applying intravenous laser. And he was using different colors. He was usually using the UV laser for intravenously applying it. And these were patients in the hospital, severe symptoms from COVID. And he said the results were, really significant, that they were being released from the hospital. Their symptoms were greatly reduced. And these patients, he wants to publish study on it, were basically, this was a wonderful prophylactic treatment in a sense, and also treatment itself. I don't like to go in that realm of what is the treatment for COVID, because to me, everyone's different. I would never treat COVID. I would treat the patient who has a condition, who has a viral infection, just as if it were EBV or any other viral infection, where you have to treat it by what is allowing it to persist. What is it allowing it to become? So, what is allowing that cytokine storm to suddenly rip apart and everything? And how do you do that for this patient? So the idea of a singular treatment, again, would go against everything we believe in as an innovative medicine approach. However, with that said, UV treatments in general, a lot of people heard, I think, the past President Trump talking about different types, but he was really, I think, referring to oxidative treatments in general with some of this. So UV hydrogen peroxide or oil is wonderful for killing off any bacterial or viral agents. You see the same with ozone therapy. You see the same with UV light through this. And so I think there are options out there that aren't necessarily the cure, the treatment. They are a means to improve immune response, reduce viral replicacy, and improve the general situation of the patient, regardless of who they are. We know that 9 out of 10, I think, hospitalizations were in someone with comorbidity, obesity, something like that. So why wouldn't we then address that 90% right away and say, well, let's try and get them healthy? Unhealthy people respond poorly to any infection. I'm sorry, it doesn't matter. yes, COVID is very kind of more virulent and a little bit more of a threat to many people. However, to some, as we know, athletes didn't even know. Why is it that some don't even know they have it and don't have symptoms, and others react so poorly? I believe it's just a very opportunistic virus in a sense, right, as they all try and be. This one's just successful at it. So the best thing you could do is just improve your state of health to where you may not even know you ever had it, and just find out by means way, just as many. We may be sitting here right now with different viruses in us, as we know, all those trillions of them. Right. Some of them are not ones we like very much and can become opportunistic given the circumstance, given where we are, our immune systems, our terrain. So terrain improvement, detoxification, and immune stimulation is really what we are suggesting to patients, not for COVID, but just for everything, for life in general. And will absolutely, in case COVID is an infection for you, would reduce symptomatology and hopefully make it an asymptomatic type of case.
Yeah, well, I think that's the right focus. Focus on strengthening the immune system, prepare your body, which is what we're, like you just said, we should be preparing our body for all this stuff. There's a couple of 3-word thoughts I share with patients in my treatment rooms. They're basically the same thing. Live as if, and act as if. Because it is going to happen. You're going to stub your toe, you're going to get a cut, you're going to, how do you give your body, the chance to do the best it can when it does face a battle, and sometimes an all-out war.
Yes.
If it's cancer or whatever it may be, how do you give your body the chance in preparation? That's the hardest thing to teach, because again, we're waiting for the light to come on rather than changing our oil, along the way. And so I love that's your emphasis, because I think that's the proper emphasis. And maybe that will bring down the fear in patients a little bit, because they've been so inundated with, the boogeyman approach that's out there. And this is the only thing you can do. And there's so much more you can do. And there's so many doctors out there doing great things. And nebulized hydrogen peroxide or IV hydrogen peroxide, ozone, the different, vitamin A, D, C, magnesium, zinc, iodine. There's just so much out there that, people can do. And if they start to build that confidence, they won't be afraid. That'll help them minimize their chances of a weak immune system that's going to be susceptible to the disease. As well as if you do get the disease, you've been confident, you've done everything right, you'll be able to navigate it better as you go through it. So I love where you're at on that. So boy, I just could just ask many more questions here, Caspar. One of the questions I do want to ask before we close, and it's not a real long question, but the little bit I've gotten to know you in preparation for this and speaking with you, did you ever want to be a doctor at any point? Did that ever cross your mind?
It crossed my mind a lot of times. And the funny thing is, the reason I didn't go into it, because my father was so busy as a doctor, right? And he was always kind of, running, and he was on call a lot when I was younger. And sometimes he missed my games when other, fathers were there. And I said, you know what? I don't want to be that busy when I grow up. And guess what? I became like a multiple business owning entrepreneur who works more than he does and more busy than he ever probably was. And the irony of that all. But no, I love it because it allows me to work directly with my father and other great doctors all over the world and help them be better doctors.
Awesome.
And so I know I could have been probably a great doctor myself in a sense, but the fact that I could help others and many of them, improve, reach more people and everything, well, it worked out. It did. The universe always provides, and it sometimes has a good sense of humor about it, like it does in my case.
Provided a good team at your innovative medicine.
Yeah, no, it's been a wonderful journey, and I wouldn't change a single thing. At times I do wish I had MD behind my name, and but at the same time, I probably wouldn't be here at all speaking about these things or have a whole different outlook on medicine in general. So I think it's it's exactly where I need to be.
Yeah, it's a good lane that you're in. How can our listeners, doctors, patients, people get more information?
Yeah, so innovativemedicine.com is our website. We're going through a huge rebrand right now, even putting out more information about therapies, more resources, more podcasts, all sorts of things. So that's actually coming out very soon. But you could go there and just see the therapy, see everything else, and reach out there. And I'm usually most active on Instagram, and I have a lot of patients go out, and I just put out little anecdotes and different therapies I'm trying all the time on there. So it's at Caspar, Caspar, last name Szulc. So those are two avenues I usually kind of push people to reach out on.
Okay, great. Hey, well, again, thank you for joining us today. I want to close by just sharing with everybody listening to be encouraged. Be encouraged. There's great opportunities for health, and be a health advocate. That is a couple of things I just want to leave people with. So we'll leave it with be encouraged. Thank you again.
I like that message. Thank you.